Granger Taylor was born on October 7, 1948, on Vancouver Island, a logging and fishing town in British Columbia. The young man showed an amazing aptitude for constructing and repairing mechanical devices. He could have possibly been described as a genius in these areas. He lived his whole life at home with his mother and stepfather on a wooded property on Semenus Lake. At 6'3" and 240 pounds, the awkward young man was considered a self-taught mechanical wizard. He dropped out of the 8th grade and found his first job with a neighbor as a mechanic's assistant. A year later, he would become self-employed and remain so for the rest of his time here. At the age of 14, Granger built a single-cylinder automobile, and at 17, he rebuilt a bulldozer that seasoned mechanics had given up on long ago. When Granger was in his early 20s, he plowed a trail of over half a mile of dense forest to get to the remains of a train. It had been abandoned during the Great Depression and had trees growing through it. He managed to extract the engine and drag it back to his home. He restored the engine back to its former glory and sold it to the province in 1973. The engine went on tour with a museum and was eventually put on display at the British Columbia Forest Discovery Center. Granger earned his pilot's license and purchased a vintage Kitty Hawk warplane that he restored himself. In order to purchase the plane, Granger's mother and stepfather had put $20,000 in his bank account, but Granger only ended up using $10,000, and he never touched the remaining money. Eventually, Granger's fixation changed from planes, trains, and automobiles to UFOs. He built a futuristic sanctuary beneath the fir trees on his parents' land. He spent the end of the 1970s building this home away from home, which looked like a life-sized UFO. Granger began collecting every UFO research book he could get his hands on in order to learn how the machines worked. His new hobby had turned into an all-consuming obsession. He isolated himself inside of his saucer, and when he did go out, he would talk only of UFOs with friends. Granger confided in his friend Nielsen that he had begun receiving messages from space, a sort of telepathic contact with extraterrestrials. He stated that these messages came from aliens beyond the Milky Way galaxy. Granger had told Nielsen that the aliens had invited him to go on a 42-month interstellar voyage. Believing that it was just Granger overreacting to a dream, his friend humored him. November 28th, a Friday, Granger had a long talk with his stepfather. During the conversation, he expressed his gratitude for everything his parents had done for him. Jim, his stepfather, had no idea it would be their last talk. Granger's mother, Grace, was in Hawaii at the time, on her first vacation that she had had in years. She would later regret not being home that night. Granger had prepared 2 wills, and in them scratched out the word deceased and replaced it with the word departed. Before he left, Granger had left a note on his parents' bedroom door. It was short and read, "Dear Mother and Father, I have gone away to walk aboard an alien ship, as recurring dreams assured a 42-month interstellar voyage to explore the vast universe, then return. I am leaving behind all my possessions to you, as I will no longer require the use of any. Please use the instructions in my will as a guide to help. Love, Granger." On the opposite side of the note was a map of Waterloo Mountain, 20 miles west of the property. The last person that saw him was a waitress working at Bob's Grill. He had stopped in for dinner at 6 p.m., wearing a brown knitted sweater zipped up in the front, a black t-shirt, jeans, and logger boots. The waitress thought this was odd because there was a storm on its way, and his clothes were not equipped to deal with the oncoming storm. She said that he had dined alone, paid for his bill, and left alone at 6:30 p.m. At this time, the storm had started to tear through Duncan and neighboring cities. The storm had hurricane-force winds and ended up downing power lines throughout the city and surrounding areas. The entire region was set in an ominous, impenetrable darkness. It wasn't until dawn when it would be revealed that Granger had vanished off the face of the earth. Granger was 32 years old when he went missing. He had left behind all of his worldly possessions, including the remaining $10,000 in his bank. He had driven off in his 1972 pale blue Datsun pickup and had never been heard from again. Granger's stepfather contacted police to help him find him. After an exhaustive search of hospitals, vehicle records, passport checks, and even applications for employment, not a single lead came up. It took 6 years before a clue showed up. Granger's truck had been found on a mountain near Duncan. It had been blown to bits in what is assumed to be a massive explosion, but a body or remains of a body were never found. There has been no conclusive evidence of what exactly happened to Granger Taylor, but there has been many theories that have come up to explain why he hasn't been found. Maybe he started a new life or committed suicide, and maybe he really did go on his 42-month expedition. The only thing we do know for sure is that a mechanical genius went missing that night. What do you think happened to Granger Taylor? Please keep in mind that a person is missing and be respectful in the comments. Let's hope he is on his 42-month adventure and that he will come back and enlighten us all of what's going on in the universe. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and share. If you want more weekly weird content, then subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Sleep tight, friends.